Welcome to the Men After God podcast, where you will be challenged and encouraged as you pursue God, achieve success, and raise a thriving family. Join your host, Dustin, and his guests on a weekly journey to grow as husbands, fathers, and men after God. Here is your host, Dustin Alley.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Men After God podcast. We've got another exciting week here with you. One of the things I am passionate about is just kingdom growth, kingdom mindset, and then partnering that with the entrepreneurial spirit that comes from so many in the business world. Many of you that are listening and subscribe to our podcast are in small business, have a desire to have a side hustle or grow and scale your business to size, and we want to help you do that. My guest today comes from an amazing background that he's going to share with us in just a moment, but he's worked in the global economy and he has been with businesses doing global work. And he has now transitioned his life to start his own company to help the small to medium-sized business grow to the scale that God would have them to be at. I'm excited to have Patrick with us today. And as we jump into this, Patrick, go ahead and tell us about your book, man. Congratulations on publishing your first book there. We're so glad to be able to put that in our show notes for our guys.
No, thanks, Dustin. It's been an absolute amazing journey, really, to publish my own book, How They Made It, Secrets from Successful Entrepreneurs You've Never Heard of, but should. My passion as we were going through all of the COVID stuff, even starting with 2020 is, I was traveling 40 weeks out of the year internationally and throughout the US. And then everything stops with COVID. And I just was really looking for some plumb lines to help me work through not being able to get to my clients, not being able to, just stay in the routine that I was in. And one of the big motivating factors for me in my life throughout my career has been looking at entrepreneurs, small and medium-sized businesses, as well as global entrepreneurs that have just, come up with an idea, put a plan around it, and then executed it. It always just amazed me, and I believe helped me take my game up to the next level as I worked with global companies. And so the book was therapy for me, but it also gave me the opportunity to tell the stories of 5 entrepreneurs, their stories. Where did they come from? When did they come up with their original idea? How did they process that? And then how did they execute it and become successful? And then the other thing is, what's next for them? So I had an opportunity to talk with and interview and write those stories. But then in the back section, I have a 21-word challenge. I didn't want to just tell the stories. I wanted to challenge people to take on the capabilities and the attributes of these businessmen and women and these teams. And so the 21-word growth challenge gives people an opportunity to look at, if I want to embrace these entrepreneurial impacts, the things that help make them successful, how do I look at what's unproductive in my life as it relates to attaining those? What am I doing that's working, that's productive? And then what am I doing that is accomplished, or how do I attain being accomplished? So the book covers all those things. And it's not a big book, right? It's 170 pages. I never like grabbing a book that's like huge, So it's one of those books you can grab and you can take, and I think it's refreshing. I think it's challenging, but I think it's also something that will help inspire people. So that's the book.
Yeah, I can't wait to pick up my copy. I love reading about stories of people that have just faced and overcome challenges and really persevered through those. You shared with me the 5. You don't have to share all 5 of them with them now. But talk about, one of the stories in there that you just either most resonated with or you think could inspire a 30-year-old man that is looking to get into business or start to grow or scale his business. Like, what's the name of that entrepreneur he should know?
No, that's really good. I think all 5 will apply, but the one that I would pick based on your question, is actually 2 young females that basically stepped out. They were challenged. They lost their jobs. Pooja Bhattacharya and Dilpreet Chadha, market researchers, right, at a global level, serving global consultants and global clients around the world, had built such a powerful and amazing brand within a corporate culture. They lose their jobs in one day. And instead of stepping out
Wow.
to work for another company, they decided, we're going to go for our own company, and we're going to take a risk, and we're going to step out and do what we believe is our destiny, something that we've thought about. Our husbands have encouraged us to do, but they stepped out in a culture in India that doesn't necessarily favor women jetting out and starting their own businesses. And now they're operating in 3 different continents. They've got 44 clients that they serve. They have a servant leadership mentality, but man, they are tenacious, they are focused, and they get it done. So they took a dream and then put an operational plan around it, and they're just kicking it. They're just doing amazing things. So I think that would be a really good story to connect with when you read the book.
As you shared about them in our before we came on to the recording here, I was hearing that, and what inspires me about their story and just hearing you tell that minimal part of it is it wasn't easy. It couldn't have
No.
been, not in
No.
their culture, not in their setting, their finances. I mean, I'm sure we're tight, especially for their dream of having a global market research company, and then to make it an all women's company.
Yes.
In a culture that doesn't really, I'm not going to say want to, I don't know enough to say that, but you wouldn't think would have that thriving and really being a big deal. And they really pushed against the flow. I, as a white Christian male in America, I've got it a lot easier than they do to try to launch a company. It's small,
right.
large, medium, and I don't know about India's resources for small or large businesses like that, but I know in America we've got tons of resources out there, and of course great guys like you that are willing to consult with them. It's a lot easier for us. But what do you think is the major factor in a man's life that keeps him from taking that step of faith, much like you've had to do, launching your own company with Growth Matrix LLC? What do you think that major factor is that just keeps a man from taking that step?
Yeah, the number one factor, and I would say this is the number one factor, and the other factors are like way down the list. It's fear, fear of failure, fear of the unknown, and fear that I'm not enough. And I think especially around the world, there's such a identity crisis with men. Things that I've struggled with is, what am I? What is my mandate? What is my kingdom mandate? And I only find that in the scriptures. But then as I meditate on the fact that God is good, and I look at the kingdom mandate of the human race, what gets reflected back on me is that I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And I think that is a missing piece in men today. Not every man, but it is. I find it a majority of the time when I see someone that's being held back, they're being held back by fear. And it's amazing that it's probably it is the most commanded do not thing in the Bible. Do not fear. And so that's what causes the hesitation. But I think the way that you can navigate through fear is by growing in your identity according to what the kingdom mandate says, what the scriptures say, who he is. And then as I meditate on who he is, what reflects back on me is who I am in partnership with him. And I think that's that journey. And it is a journey. It's not, but it is it's my goal. It's my destination every day, is if I can connect intimately with that, then fear has to stand at bay. So I would say it's fear.
Oh, I love that. And I think that goes right with 2 Timothy 1:7. I preached this recently, but it's, for God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. And the power and love, you can almost think of it a little contradictory, right? We've got the power to overcome, the power to fight, the power to persevere. And then you got love on the other side, which is more humble, meek, and mild, if you will, not weak. There's a difference. And then of a sound mind. And as I preached that, I thought, and I think you'll relate to this, that sound mind lets us know when we're supposed to use which one. The power or the love. And all of it's fueled by love, I believe. But nonetheless, it is not a spirit of fear that we have. And it's because we know who we are in Christ. And
Yes.
that's, as far as Men After God's concerned, one of our things we're excited for in 2024 is the launch of our coaching program that's going
Mm,
to help us to help men identify their core purpose that God has made them for, and then coach them
yes.
on how to live from that in their context.
Yeah.
And I think it's so great that you brought that up, that being able to overcome that fear comes from knowing you use the word mandate. I might say
Hmm.
identity, but same thing. Knowing
Right.
who I am in Christ allows me to live without fear. Because if I'm living from that, then I'm living from who he's told me to be. And
Yes.
everyone else is going to, again, you're going to find people that love it. You're going to find people that hate it, but we're not here to please them. We're here to please him. And then when we
Right.
do that, I think we find success in whatever it may look like.
Yes.
So you took that step of faith. You stepped out through the fear. You started Growth Matrix LLC. Give us a little backstory, and because you've got over 30 years of experience in the global marketplace, and I'm sure to try to go through all of it right now would take up a few podcast episodes for us. But
Right.
give us a little backstory, if you could, on just your experience, and then talk about Growth Matrix and how you come alongside those small businesses to help them scale.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. I started my career here in Detroit, um, basically selling and program managing custom software development. And then I started integrating technology solutions together within the automotive industry for suppliers that were communicating and working with original equipment manufacturers or automotive companies like GM, Ford, and Chrysler at the time, now Stellantis. And so I really cut
Mm,
my teeth in really understanding, oh my gosh, how does the business world work within the automotive industry? And all industries are tough, don't get me wrong, but the automotive industry is super tough, super regulated. Um, People that have been serving in the automotive industry for decades are doing so because the number one focus of our careers is to add significant value every time we show up. So that was
yeah.
the training ground for me. And so moved through the technology space in the systems integration piece, consulting, and then worked into helping to support large scale consulting projects, not only selling them, but also helping to program manage them depending on the project, and then would oversee global relationships. Like when I was with KPMG, I was globally responsible for the relationship with General Motors. When I was at Ernst & Young,
Mm,
I was globally responsible for the relationship with Ford Motor Company. And then just recently, I left Korn Ferry, which is a global people and organization transformation company and one of the largest executive search firms in the world. And I held a portfolio
wow.
that worked with companies like Toyota and John Deere and Cummins and 3M and others. And so from that perspective,
Wow.
you learn not only how to add value, but how to add value at scale. And so when
Mm,
I had the dream of starting my own company, it was really to build an economy around my gifts and talents to draw expert teams together, which is what I would do within the global brands that I served. But to leverage my network around the world to be able to come into small and medium sized companies that maybe have grown and maybe they're doing amazing, but they want to scale globally or they want to scale to 20, 30, 40, or 50 million. I've got experience on helping companies grow at scale. So to be able to come in and help steward small to medium sized companies, help them steward the growth, put a growth strategy together, work with their top teams, maybe do some executive coaching, depending on what needs to be done, and then helping to support that growth strategy or that initiative for them moving forward. And so, again, leveraging my experience at scale, but then understanding how business grows. And to be honest, Dustin, healthy companies, healthy organizations, they grow. And so, how do you tap
Yep.
into that and pull out the toxic threads in your culture, in your management style, maybe in your strategy, to your growth strategy. How do you address those things and get yourself into a momentum in order to get things growing and moving and building the momentum? And so that's my background. And Growth Matrix LLC is committed to working with small to medium-sized companies to help them grow.
Man, that is phenomenal. I love that. You mentioned something, toxic threads, how you get those out. Now, in your experience in the global economy, I'm sure you've seen, a plethora of those types of things. Let's focus in on just maybe 1 to 3. Like if you were to say like 1 to 3 main toxic thread themes that you've seen, that you could tell right now to a business owner, hey, watch out for this. It's very common. It's very bad. Make sure to get this removed. Like, what would you identify, or which ones would you identify in those 1 to 3 that are just pretty common that a guy could say, okay, I need to check that out right now?
Yeah, I think one is I would put this around the topic of transparency and accountability. Of, say, you've got a CEO in the company,
Good.
Okay, and they behave one way to the public, and they behave another way to their employees. Right. So to the public and to anytime they're on screen, they're generous and really convey a big heart. But then when the cameras are off, they're insulting, indignant, impatient. They rule with an iron fist. That is more common than you would think. And so there are leaders that is toxic to the culture because people don't know how to behave. They see one image on the camera and then they see the other compromising or hypocritical kind of action where people are treated unfairly. So I think that would be a toxic thread. I think another toxic thread is inconsistency in performing against a plan. So for example, you publish, hey, this is the direction that we're going, and this is what we want to do, and this is what we want to be as a company. But then all of a sudden, the leadership gets rattled because things are going on in the marketplace. And let me just state, plans are meant to be adjusted, right? But sometimes fear and micromanagement comes in, and all of a sudden, something that was meant to be like unleashing the future or the potential of the company with great plans, great strategies, and things like that. Now that there's constraints have come in, sometimes fear and micromanagement comes in. And what that actually does is if you think a legitimate challenge and investment in somebody breeds creativity. Fear and micromanagement diminishes creativity. So what ends up happening is when the fear and micromanagement comes in, creativity just wanes. And so then they, beat the drum harder, put the squeeze on even more, and they don't realize that they're choking the life out of their organization. And then I would throw a third one in the market today, there is a liberty that's taking place. People are becoming more emboldened with, hey, I want a work-life balance. I don't want to just, like when I started, it was all sacrifice and then have passion. Yeah. But it was like, if I was asked to work through the night, I would wake up the next morning and say, Mr. Boss, you want me to work again? So it was sacrifice, sacrifice, sacrifice. Now, there tends to be more of a focus on passion and less sacrifice. And so what I'm seeing is we got to figure out, especially whether it's a small company, medium-sized company, or large-scale company, we have to do better at figuring out how to leaders being relevant to a workforce that wants more work-life balance, but then younger 20s, 30s, and 40s that want more work-life balance need to understand, wait a minute, I need to learn how to sacrifice with my passion. It's not just all about me getting, like that 30-something that wants the group vice president role. And this is so real. But they have no wisdom. They have no experience. in actually
No.
having or attaining that role. So that is confusing the culture, that topic. And so leaders need to learn how to relate better, to guide and challenge. And
Mm.
workers, even senior leaders that are young, need to learn how to, I think, add in sacrifice with passion, accountability. So those would be three that I would say are holding companies back today.
I love that. And, and a lot of time, one of the things I love about having conversations with those in the marketplace on our podcast, being a pastor, is helping some of our guys that are listening, because all are part of churches and different things like that, understand how their pastor can actually relate to them on a level that they might not have thought of before. And that is
Mm-hmm.
with that entrepreneurial spirit and those leadership challenges and those various things that go on there. I want to key in on something you said. Well, really, you did too. And you're going to, I remember one very distinctly because it's not a prevalent problem, but it's something we all face as pastors and leaders. And then your second one there. So the first one of being one thing in front of the camera and one thing behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
As a leader, and especially, and now I'm saying for me, my organization, if you will, our church family, when I preach, I preach the word, and it's on Sundays, and I'm there for everyone I'm giving. Then you come in a Monday and you got a staff member that didn't meet a deadline.
Right.
And so obviously we're not nailing him to the wall or, throwing him out with the garbage that morning, but, in the helping those who are in that position to understand that. And I think, you tell me if I'm wrong, you've got more experience than I do. When you're in front of people that way, you're there and you're giving to them. So if your emotions are off, or if you're upset, you're angry, you might have to
Mm-hmm.
set those to the side and be there for them. And
Yeah.
then behind the scenes, if you will, how it's not unloving, I don't think, to hold someone accountable and to
Right.
have a direct, not degrading or insulting, but a direct conversation, and just kind of balancing that. Could you speak to that for just a moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that successful teams, in particular, they need to be challenged with excellence, right?
Yes.
And in challenging people with excellence, when there's a level of humility and love that's with that, it's, hey, we're all in this together, but you have a role in this, and I need you to step up, because you're not just impacting the team, you're impacting yourself and in your future. And being able to do that in love and in humility, but in strength, challenging, to make sure that that expectation is high, but that the love and the humility is high. I think it gives you the opportunity to address that. And I've had team members in many different cultures that I've had to have those discussions with. And what people relate to the best isn't so much my words, it's my heart. They can see, and I
Mm.
didn't used to be this way in the beginning. It was a learned and growth thing for me. But as I matured in my leadership approach and really embraced love and humility, what it did is it gave me the opportunity to relate to them from the heart, that there's more at play here
Mm.
than just meeting the deadline. This is you getting the opportunity to grow and mature in order to meet that excellence that we expect from you. But accountability, there's a passiveness in marketplace today. And so what happens is there are
Okay.
leaders that won't even address it. They'll just be like, put them on a list, non-compliant,
Mm.
can't work it out. And then there's this secret kind of behavior that I'm not going to give them an opportunity, this passive aggressive, right, approach to
Mm.
things.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think transparency and love and genuineness is the best caring that you can bring forward as a leader. And regardless of, you mentioned the church world and the church life, which is an organization, right, that wants to meet excellence, but it's in everything that we do.
Hmm.
Um, Being able to let people
Yeah.
know, I'm really disappointed. I didn't see you, come to work with your A game. Is there something going on in your, is there something, are you okay? Because a lot of times people don't bring their A game, not because they don't want to, but gosh, I mean, look at what we're managing today, between home life and
Yeah.
kids and growth and, all of these things that are going on. But the heart for the individual has got to be first, but I can't compromise, but I need excellence from you. I hope that helps.
Exactly. Yeah. And No, it does. I think that's wonderful because you mentioned accountability, and that's a huge thing, and being able to hold someone accountable. I find it easier to hold someone accountable in a loving and humble way when I'm living from who God's called me to be.
Hmm.
And I think that for me is just foundational.
Yep.
In knowing who God's called me to be, I can comfortably have a conversation with someone. Because if I'm being passive aggressive, I love this. Another pastor that I'm friends with, great leader, Kerry Schmidt's his name. He was talking one time in staff development. I can't quote it, but it's basically, if you're afraid of having the conversation, an uncomfortable conversation, what you're saying is it's better for everyone else to be uncomfortable because everyone
Hmm.
else sees it too,
Right.
than it is for you to be uncomfortable. Now, I've been guilty. I've been guilty of avoiding that uncomfortable conversation, and I've had to go in and have those uncomfortable conversations.
Right.
And I love how you pointed out it's about growth. We all don't just start there. The
Right.
question, are great leaders born or are they made? And I think the answer is yes, because
Yes.
they can be born, but they're going to learn a lot. And then if they weren't born a leader, they could become one with, again, just time and experience
Hmm.
and failure, because we're all going to be facing that.
That's right.
So you're coming in with small, medium-sized businesses. Now, is your company focused solely on growing to global scale? Or if I had a company come to you and say, "Hey, listen, I'm an oil company. I deliver oil for homes in
Sure.
Connecticut, and I want to I'm really not, I can't go global, okay?
Right.
But I'd like to go regional. I'd like to start getting into New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, somewhere like that. Are you
Yes.
are you there to help companies grow to that size or just to the global scale?"
No, great question. I appreciate that. It's really growth, period. Uh, and
Good.
I
Okay.
w- yeah, yeah. So I think that there are companies that are trying to grow and they're stuck, and they can't figure out why they're
Mm,
stuck. Part of my background and experiences is helping people at scale become unstuck, if you will, because they don't call people in, they don't call consultants in when everything's going great. It's
yeah.
we've tried everything.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Yeah.
need an outside perspective that has a perspective on what other companies have done. So from that perspective, I think that the companies that would be in the sweet spot for Growth Matrix LLC are companies that are up against a wall and they're stuck. And part of it is leveraging experience, but the other part of it is leveraging my kingdom value system that says, are there
Mm,
things like we talked
that's
about
good.
toxicity, or sometimes it's a mindset. I'm working with a with a manufacturer today. They're really strong in the US. They want to go global in this particular example, but their mindset it has been US based. So their channel strategy,
Mm,
their sales strategy, everything that they're doing is based on everything that they've ever known. And so when we talk about putting a strategy together for them from a global perspective, it's okay, how do I think differently about providing value to the countries that they're thinking about and dreaming about, but then what channel strategy would be involved with that? How would I actually
mm,
engage from that perspective? But it's really looking at how do you grow regardless of what your situation is, and if you're stuck, how do we get you unstuck? Based on my experience and the experience of my team, and looking at the kingdom principles that he's the architect of all things that grow. So tapping into that
yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
is priceless. It's just priceless.
That is so good. As you said that, that's why I laughed when you first started talking, because it made me think of marriage counseling. Nobody ever calls the pastor in to counsel, like, "Hey, pastor,
Right.
everything's going great, and we just wanted to let you know that." Right?
Right.
It's always, "Hey, we've done everything we possibly can. The divorce lawyer's coming tomorrow. You've got 1 hour. Good luck."
Hmm.
And so,
Yes. Yes.
but here's what usually gets I'm going to say a company. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but a marriage to that point is this idea of, well, we can't have someone else help us. We've got to do this
Yeah.
ourselves. We've
Yep.
got to overcome. And I tell couples in premarital counseling, like, "Hey, I recommend 6 months to a year or more of postmarital counseling, It's not going to be as
Mm-hmm.
intense or in depth, but it's really more of a check-in and
That's
get
right.
them used to a third party speaking into their lives to say, okay, you're here now. How's it
Yes.
going? What's next for you? How are you growing? And is there anything wrong? Can we work through it? That way, God forbid, 20, 30 years from now, when the spark is gone and they need to reignite
Mm-hmm.
it, it's not uncomfortable for them to have a third party come in. And so,
That's right.
speak to that for just a moment of just how, first off, I think how normal it is for a
Yes.
company to bring a consultant or to bring a coach in to work with them and help them to grow. And then individual small businesses. I mean, Patrick, I know your stuff is great. I've been looking over your material. I love your kingdom mindset. But let's face it, you're not the only person in this space. Why?
That's right.
Because there is a great demand for people like you. And so speak to that for just a moment and just maybe something of overcoming that idea. You mentioned American ideas. That's kind of one of them. Like, I'll pick myself up by my bootstraps and I'll do it
Right.
myself.
Right.
Just kind of overcoming that a bit and the value that comes from bringing someone from the outside in.
Yeah. It's really amazing when you look at companies like Toyota, Cummins, John Deere, at the C-suite, at the senior levels, they bring in counselors, the best of the best, to give outside in perspective, because they know that in order to grow and stay relevant to the marketplace, they need to continually keep the flow of insight and coaching going on. And so that helps build the strategy piece that you talked about. But then operationalizing the strategy is the ongoing relationship that says, okay, now that we've figured out where we want to go based on consultants and insights that are taking place around the world, now we're in a situation where, yeah, we have to really operate. We need to really grow. We need leaders, like top teams. Like there might be 6 direct reports to a CEO, and those 6 direct reports are knocking it out of the park individually in their areas, but they don't work very well together. So how do we create projects that actually add value to the company to help take the company to the next level, to create a top team initiative that encourages these very different leaders that reports, for example, to a CEO. And so those types of exercises, those types of accountability, executive coaching, it's so common today that I tell people the resources to overcome anything that you're struggling with is available to you. The question is, are you willing to humble yourself and receive outside perspective in order to grow? And that's for my personal life. It's for my marriage, like you mentioned, but it's also for your corporate life. And we're actually seeing an acceleration of that acceptance the more we're talking about mental health. Man, you did not talk about mental health 30 years ago. That was like, oh no, I've got it going on. But we're talking more about mental health. We're talking more about work-life balance. We're talking more about family first in every culture of the world. And so I think that
Really,
the biggest issue that people have to understand is that the resources are available. The question is, am I willing to let myself in? And I'll tell you, top corporations around the world do that flawlessly. And so that maybe that helps give some perspective.
I hope so. And then, I let's just be honest, the Christian marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Listen, listeners, I love you, but I'm speaking from people I've spoken to for years and trying to work with Christian business owners and trying to work with people. In the Christian marketplace, business owners and just consumers can be some of the cheapest people I've ever worked with or ever tried to work with. And I'm not trying to be very derogatory, but it's a true thing in my life, in that we want value. And we think because our salvation is free, so should everything else that's given to us. And when you talk about being able to receive that help and aid there, I want to add to that just for a minute, Patrick, and say you've got to be willing to pay for the value a person is bringing you, and see that value that's coming from them and how it's going to help you. And it's not wrong to ask for that. In fact, it's Patrick, in your world, it's 100% commonplace
Yes.
for that. You don't have executive coaching companies existing out of their own goodwill,
Yes.
and so I think that's something that's important. I want to tease our subscriber only interview we're about to do, Patrick, for our listeners here. And listen, if you're not a subscriber, you can go over to patreon.com/menaftergod and sign up, and you can have access to our subscriber only content and then a plethora of other just add-ons that are a part of that. And go check that out over at patreon.com/menaftergod. You mentioned earlier in the podcast about the 21 word question survey you have.
Challenge.
I think I said that wrong, so you can clear it up for me. Yeah,
Yeah,
growth challenge.
21 word growth challenge.
Highlight that again. There you go. 21 word growth challenge. In our interview that we're going to do for our subscribers, Patrick is actually going to break out about 3 to 5 of those and talk about them and how the application that it would be to not just you as a business owner, but the implications of you as a man after God, as a follower of Jesus, as a husband, as a father, and how that impact can be there. And so I'm really looking forward to that time we're going to have together. Patrick, if you would, and you hit on it some earlier, but if you could say a few more words just about that 21 word growth challenge you've got there and just how instrumental you've seen that in helping people to grow.
Yeah, I think, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Dustin. I think the 21 word growth challenge, which is the last section of the book, gives people an opportunity to understand what 21 capabilities or what 21 insights that these entrepreneurs express throughout their stories. It gives us the opportunity to really dive in deeper with, wow, in being respected as a leader, what does that really mean today in today's times? And so I created a rubric structure where it's basically 3 columns. What are 3 things you don't want to do? 3 things that are unproductive. What are 3 things that are productive in accomplishing being a respected leader? And then what are 3 things that demonstrate that you're moving into the accomplished area? And then you can rate yourself and just honestly sit and I think even get people that know you in the marketplace that you would see as a trusted advisory, share with them that you're going through this journey of wanting to be better at exercising humility as a leader, or being a going big in your ideas and stretching yourself. And it just denotes what are some of the, let's break it down into a much more specific thing that says, how can I grow in this? And so that's the 21 word growth challenge. And I'm excited about it because it's not based on my experience alone, but it's based on the experiences of these 5 entrepreneurs. And believe me, I didn't design the fact that they're all of these entrepreneurs, excessive givers, excellent in team building, team mindsets, servant leaders, extraordinaire. All of them is amazing, right? I pulled 5 from, I didn't even know how it was all going to work out, and they all demonstrated these things. And so the challenge gives us the opportunity to mine it like mining for gold, to be able to bring those things into our life.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. And as I heard you describe those attributes, I thought of Jesus as he is a team builder when he brought his disciples together there. He's obviously got vision, being God, and just everything that's there. It's the model that Jesus established for us. And I think it's great that you saw it in, I don't know if you hit it in your book or anything, but I don't know if the believers or not, but ultimately, like, there's a model that God's established for the universe and how it operates. Jesus modeled that. And by being a servant leader, by building a team, by staying focused, we can see God do really, really great things. And I love working with people that want to do it for his kingdom. Patrick, I love it, man. Thank you so much for the interview today. You brought much value to our listeners, and I'm excited for them to hear you. And I can't wait to get your book. I'm going to be ordering it today and looking forward to reading that. Hey guys, listen, it has been an amazing, amazing day on the Men After God podcast. I mean, how often do you get to hear from someone who's worked in the global marketplace and share with you insights on how to take your small to medium-sized business to the next level? You say, Dustin, I don't want to be a global business, but I believe I could be regional. I could believe I could grow into another town or a city.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you absolutely can if that's what God's calling you to do. And Patrick is here to help out. So check out the show notes with the link to his book. It'll have a link to his website, and get in touch with him and let him know you heard from him. You heard about him from the Men After God podcast, because I know he'd be encouraged to know that he's working with another kingdom-minded entrepreneur to grow their business, to grow God's kingdom. Patrick, again, thanks so much for interviewing today, my friend. Everyone else, I'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to the Men After God podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and keep up with the show by following us at facebook.com/menaftergod. You can also reach out to Dustin personally at dustin@seekconsulting.us with any questions or for coaching on being a man after God. Until next time.